Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome to video number 4 for my Halloween 2019 card series. For this video, I'm using some of the brand new, just released Simon Says Stamp Stamptember products. The first being this spooky silhouette background. So I have it in my MISTI, and I removed the foam pad from my MISTI because this is a red rubber on cling foam stamp. And then I kind of went backwards. I have the stamp on the lid, and then I lined up my cardstock exactly how or what part of the stamp I want, which is kind of centered. You could just stamp on a larger piece of cardstock and die cut it. That works. The only reason I did it this way was because I went through my pieces of cardstock and I had this perfectly sized A2 piece. So I laid that, and then I just put some washi tape on the back of it, so now it's stuck to the inside of my MISTI, and then this way I can restamp this more than once, and it, I don't have to line it up or do anything. But again, you could totally just use a larger piece of cardstock, line it up in the corner, that works too. But if you have smaller pieces, this little trick works quite nicely. So I stamped this twice. It's lavender cardstock that I'm using, and I am inking up this stamp with Simon's lavender ink. It would have looked amazing in black, or I was thinking dark gray too, but I don't want this to be the main focus. I want it more as a literally background. So when that ink dries on that cardstock, it'll be a lot more subtle than it looked a second ago because the ink was still wet. So I'd stamped it a couple times, set it aside, and then I'm using this CZ Design My Zombie Boo. I can't even say that with a straight face, it's just funny. Stamp set. And I just have a scrap of Neenah Classic Crest Solar White 80-pound cardstock. Save all my scraps. People have been asking me lately. I have really old posts on my blog and whatnot showing different organization ideas, and I pretty much still do the same thing. Like, I've moved things around, but it's the same concept. I just store my scraps with the packages of cardstock. And then that's when I go to make a card. I look at the scraps first before even thinking of touching a full sheet of cardstock, especially things like the Neenah that, I'm stamping little images that are going to be die cut, etc. I save all my scraps because I always get use out of them. Always. So I stamped all these images onto that piece of cardstock with Simon's Intense Black ink, stamping them a couple times to make sure I got a really good, detailed image. And then I'm doing some very simple coloring with Copic markers. These images just lend themselves to quick and easy coloring, nothing too crazy. I decided to do this kind of like apple green sort of combo for these little zombie hands because it went nicely with like that lavender color. So started with those, just working from darkest to lightest. Again, simple images, simple coloring. This didn't take very long at all. After I did the like zombie hands, I did the little rocks. I did these in purples since the background is purple. So same thing, just darkest to lightest. I also very lightly tapped the purple onto like the nails of the zombie just because I thought it'd be funny. So added that, and then again, worked just darkest to lightest with these little purple rocks. And then for the shovel handles, the skull, the little bones that are exposed on the zombie hands, I'm using warm grays. And keeping the darker shades on the handles just to give them that little extra something, and then going all the way to the lightest with that little skull and then the little bones and whatnot. Again, just going through the process. So after adding that, I dabbed on a tiny little bit of yellow onto the little bit of the candle flame there, and then I used cool grays for the actual metal part of these shovels. Just adding a little bit of that, so it gives it that kind of a little bit of a metallic look. Once I was done my coloring, I used the coordinating wafer die set to cut out all of these images, just tape them into place with some washi tape, and then I'm going to run these through my die cut machine. So I'd already separated all the dies, and then taped them into place, ran them through my machine, and then I also die cut the background with one of Simon's basic rectangle wafer dies. So you can use a paper cutter. I like having rectangle. It's amazing how handy they come in, especially if you're cutting down a background and you don't stamp it straight, or it just isn't going to, you can't cut it down straight without some serious fiddling. That's why I love rectangle dies. Plus it makes it easier to layer things too. So I die cut that. And then I also die cut the Boo Word and Shadow wafer dies from some white cardstock and from some green cardstock. Layered those together with my craft tacky glue. Once I had those layered together, I decided I was going to stamp the rest of the sentiment just right onto the background. My initial thought was to, you know, heat emboss it and die cut, etc. But I was like, no, you know, this will just work. Like, just stamp it right on the background. So I pulled out the Happy Halloween sentiment, and then I also pulled out the hey word. I got a kick out of the, like, hey boo, you know. So, hey boo, Happy Halloween. So line those up with my MISTI again. This time I stamped these onto the background with VersaFine Onyx Black, or VersaFine Clair Nocturne. It's basically the same as the Onyx Black. I've said that in a million videos. But yeah, stamp those onto the background. And then I'm going to also stamp the inside of my card. I decided to use that one larger, the zombie rescue stamp is going to go on the inside, but I wanted to add another sentiment from this stamp set because it just ties it all in together, because it says, just reaching out to wish you a very happy Halloween. So yeah, stamp that with the Simon Says Stamp green apple ink, because it goes with that cardstock, and then adhered that color and die cut piece above it. Then I'm going to adhere my card panel, and then I'm going to adhere these little elements to finish off like the scene of this card. So I've got my sentiment, and then the little zombie hand and the shovel and the little skull with the candle on top of it. So after I get all those adhered in place, I decided to add just one type of embellishment, nothing too crazy. I pulled out some of my Nuvo crystal drops. So I have ebony black, apple green, and gloss white crystal drops. And I've mentioned this in other videos, and people have sent me questions about it. With the Nuvo drops, if they sit for a really long time, like I'm talking months, they start to thicken. And you'll notice it. Like, I get asked, people ask me a lot, they're like, what? Mine don't smooth out. They still have a peak. How do you get rid of the peaks? Well, one, after I apply them, I tap my cards on this, my work surface onto an ink pad, like anything, just anything to tap it on. That helps smooth it out. But another thing is, if the peaks are there and they don't go away, and it's really thick, and you'll notice you'll have trouble sometimes getting out of the bottle, is they get too thick. And all you need to do is add a couple drops of distilled water to it. The little tiny nozzle on the top, that just pops right out. And then you can add a couple drops of distilled water, shake it up really well. That thins it out and it's good to go. And I should have done that with my green and my white. I did all that off camera later because I'd been struggling with them and wasn't following my own advice. Anyway, that helps a lot. It thins them out just a little bit. You don't want to add too much. Like I said, just a couple drops. And it's good to go. And you'll notice it starts flowing better. They work better. They smooth out more. And everything's just hunky-dory. So that is my card for today. Like I mentioned in my previous video, I have a huge, going up right before this is my massive Stamptember haul video, huge giveaway. I will have more videos coming, tons and tons of videos coming. So stay tuned, you know, subscribe if you haven't, click the bell so you get notifications when I upload. There's going to be a lot. I'm super excited. There'll be links below this one to the supplies I used, etc. So check that out if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.